So it has been a full week since we got to play the second Halo Infinite multiplayer flight. I got to participate in it for both weekends, and I have some thoughts. Most of them are positive, although I have a few questions with regards to perhaps what the future of this game will look like in terms of weapon balancing and a whole bunch of other stuff that they're going to do. So, now, before getting started, I do have to caveat by saying the obligatory stuff, right? This is not a finished product. You know, we still don't really know anything about the campaign or what they're going to do for their 10-year plan with this game. We don't even know if that's going to work. There's still a lot that's up in the air in terms of what direction Halo Infinite's going to go in after it launches and all of that stuff. And the stuff that we saw during the flight was only a small segment of what we're going to get at launch. You've heard everyone else say it before. But nevertheless, it's important to remember that we still have a couple of months before the game comes out. So we'll see what happens with campaign and everything else. But this video is going to be focused on my personal experience playing the multiplayer flight. And with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and start by talking about the good stuff, right? First impressions, right? Now, we had 2 weekends, like I said at the start. We had the first weekend, which was focused on 4 versus 4 arena multiplayer, and the second weekend was focused on their revamped big team battle, on their one map fragmentation. And in terms of the gameplay, in terms of how weapon balancing and the map design feels, along with vehicle combat and everything like that, this game is a lot of fun, man. Now, keep in mind my relationship with the Halo franchise over the past, God, like 9 years. Probably closer to 10, because I got my start with Halo Reach when I got my 360, my Xbox 360 in 2011. Came with a digital download of Halo Reach in like 3 months of Xbox Live Gold. That was my first real foray into the world of Halo's online multiplayer, so that might affect my perspective a little bit. But I'm telling you, man, I mean, like, especially after the Master Chief Collection came out, I don't know how many people were there for it when it launched, but that game was broken at launch. And you compound that with how divisive Halo 4 was when it came out, and how even at one point the original Halo 3 had a bigger online player population than Halo 4, and all of this other stuff, plus Microsoft's attitude towards the franchise in general. You know, it's been a very long time since Halo has been in such a healthy state in terms of its community and overall franchise interest. And that says a lot about where Halo is right now, and that just makes me super happy. And that definitely would not have been the case whatsoever if the game, like I said before, wasn't fun to play. I mean, from like in a lot of like what I'm gonna say is, you know, me speaking from, again, my personal experience, so there's gonna be bias thrown in there, but like, keep in mind, the bulk of my Halo experience, you know, was with Halo 4 and 5, and once they fixed the Master Chief Collection, that's when my appreciation for the classic Halos grew a lot more, because I didn't grow up with those games. But, you know, with crossplay and everything like that on the Master Chief Collection, you know, it was a lot of fun, and it made me appreciate especially Halo 3 that much more. And now I kind of use Halo 3 as my baseline for comparing all the other multiplayer modes in the franchise, by virtue of the fact that I played it in the Master Chief Collection. And I mean, and you can take it from somebody who was there at day one, right? I mean, that game is just fun, man. In my honest opinion, Halo 3's multiplayer is as close to perfect as a multiplayer first-person shooter could possibly be. You know, because keep in mind, right? 2007 was when Halo 3 came out. That was before Call of Duty exploded in popularity. Well, I mean, you had COD 4, right? But Modern Warfare 2 put Call of Duty on the map, and that was the game that changed first person shooters forever. You know, for worse, in my opinion. Just in terms of empowering players and doing all of this other stuff. But that's kind of a different commentary. I'm more than happy to talk about that another time. But Halo 3, you know, just it had such a wide skill gap, man, just in the BR fights by themselves. And it had a properly working ranking system back in the day as well. And True Skill 2.0, aka what they're using for Infinite in Halo 3 now, you know, it's fine, but it's hard because of that tainted Master Chief Collection launch. And on top of that, too, just there's a whole lot of other problems with the MCC in terms of its matchmaking. Most of them, you know, have been resolved for the most part, but there's still a few others that stick out. But in general, Halo 3's multiplayer was perfect back in the day. And the only thing I regret is not having enjoyed it sooner. And I use that game as a baseline for comparing all the other multiplayer modes, or not modes, but other Halo multiplayer segments for all the other games now, because it just did everything so perfectly, man. And you know, comparing it to Halo Infinite, that's absolutely no exception. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that Halo Infinite, it's Halo Infinite's multiplayer, in my honest opinion, is as close as the franchise has been to Halo 3 in terms of the overall enjoyment, in terms of the map design, weapon balancing, etc., since then. You know, here's the way I sum it up, right? It's not better than Halo 3, alright? Halo 3 will always have the best multiplayer, in my opinion. It will always be the best game in the franchise. And I'm sticking with that, you know? But I like it more than Halo Reach. I like it more than Halo 4. I like it more than Halo 5. And I even like it more than Halo 2. Kill me. You know? But yeah, man. I mean, that's just in terms of like my baseline. Halo 3 will always be on top, but Halo Infinite is really looking like it's going to be a close second, and I kind of want to go into detail as to why. Chief among those reasons being Sprint, okay? Now, for anyone who's not familiar with Sprint in Halo and why it's so controversial, Sprint affects Halo's gameplay and vertical combat more than it does any other franchise, alright? Any other first-person shooter out there. So the basis of the argument is that in order to accommodate the two different movement speeds and the sudden gain in speed that you get from sprinting, maps have to be stretched out so that way people aren't bouncing around the Halo 3 style map like a bunch of ninjas hopped up on PCP. Because you get rid of the vertical combat and it just messes up everybody's overall gameplay experience. But the cost of making the maps larger is that it removes a lot of the vertical combat and enjoyability that players had with those original Halo games, right? Because now you're having to accommodate the two different movement speeds, so it's the illusion of gaining speed, right? You know, you mash sprint after playing a game like Call of Duty to feel like you're going fast. But you're not really, because you're not getting around the map any faster in one of these new Halos than you were in the original. It just feels like you are. It's all an illusion, right? So the resulting gameplay is a net negative all around, because the game flow is different, because the maps have had to be changed, and the way people react to gunfights too, right? If somebody started shooting you in Halo 3 or Halo 2, or even Combat Evolved, although Combat Evolved is kind of a wild card because that was the first game in the franchise and its multiplayer is unbalanced like crazy. But in general, you could not run away from a gunfight in Halo 3, right? You know, once somebody started shooting at you, there was a very high probability that they were able to finish that kill. That changed with Halo Reach, and to a much greater extent Halo 4. because now the maps have been stretched out, people have these two movement speeds going, and people were able to escape and get away from these fights, you know? And it totally changed the way people played Halo, and it was frustrating for the series veterans, which is why it was also so incredibly divisive when Halo 4 came out. Wasn't the only reason, but it was a big part of why people didn't enjoy the game that much. And same with Halo 5, because Halo 5, it tried to go back to the series' competitive roots somewhat, but it still had sprint and advanced mobility, and it shared a lot of the same problems that Halo 4 had. So, and this has been a problem with Halo for years and years and years. Which brings us to Halo Infinite. Now, Halo Infinite's solution to sprint is, I want to say it's like 50-50 between the pro sprint and the anti-sprint crowds, but it's more like 90% anti-sprint, 10% sprint crowd, you know? Now, simply put, they have dramatically nerfed sprint in Halo Infinite's multiplayer. You know, it's still there. And they make you feel like you're going fast and everything, right? Just with like the speed lines and the animations and all that, but you're only getting a 9% boost to your speed with sprint. And I mean, in the first multiplayer flight for Halo Infinite back in July, they changed the mini-map to where you would only pop up on the radar if you were in sprint. And, you know, they reversed that for Halo Infinite going forward. But it still goes to show that they really tried everything in their power to nerf sprint right into the ground. And they did it in a way that it wouldn't really piss anybody off, you know? And I kind of want to explain why, because, you know, you would think the opposite would be true, but it's a very interesting solution that they came up with. By nerfing sprint and giving you the illusion of speed, they essentially were able to build their multiplayer around a baseline multiplayer speed, just like classic Halos, because you're not going twice as fast in sprint mode as you are when you're idly walking. Again, you're only getting a 9% speed increase. If somebody is walking at an idle speed in multiplayer a la classic Halo, and they're trying to chase somebody who's in full sprint, they're going to be able to keep up with them. And they're going to be able to land a whole bunch of shots on them and more than likely kill them, right? Now, I assume the only reason they kept sprint in there in some capacity was so that way you could enable advanced movement, you know, i.e. being able to clamber up to objects and doing the power slide and all of that. You know, sprint gives you momentum. But at the same time, it's very clear that they wanted to build their game around a base multiplayer speed. And the maps reflect that. The maps, they don't quite hit the same mark as Halo 3, in my opinion. I will admit that. You know, Bazaar, Recharge, Live Fire, Big Team Battle's a little different, so I'm not including that in this equation. But for the arena multiplayer, the maps feel closer to Halo 3's original design philosophy than they have been in a long time. Most of the vertical combat and the variety of different combat scenarios that people typically associate with classic Halos, they're pretty much back in full swing here, man. You compound that with all the personal equipment that they've put into the game and the way they've changed weapon spawning with their weapon racks, and the result is a multiplayer mode that feels much more in line with what series veterans have wanted for years, you know? And when you put it that way, it really does go to show that having to balance your game for sprint and the increased movement speed associated with it, it puts such a huge toll on the overall gameplay that being able to see what its lack of inclusion or it being, you know, nerfed or whatever it is, you know, nowadays, it's absolutely incredible, man. And I think it was the right call to make. Do I think it would have been better if they fully removed it? Yes, but at the same time, we have to keep in mind that it's the year of our Lord and Savior, 2021, and the multiplayer is going to be free to play, and reality The reality of the situation is they have to make the game casual enough to attract casual crowds, because the series veterans and the devout Halo fans by themselves can't keep this game alive, especially with the business model that they want, so they had to come up with a solution where both parties would be okay with it, you know? And now those players who typically play games like Call of Duty or whatever, they can sprint, and they get that illusion of speed, but it's not at the cost of the gameplay. And in my honest opinion, that's nothing but a positive. So the second part to this has to do with the emphasis on teamwork and winning games, which I don't hear a lot of people talking about this part. Most of the time when people are talking about how much they enjoy Halo Infinite, it has more to do with the base mechanics and map design, and everybody can agree they're dramatically improved from the previous 343 entries, but the teamwork aspect, right? This is something that you don't get with Call of Duty. This is more something that nowadays people associate with more competitive shooters like Valorant or Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which is how much more important winning the match is than your personal performance. Because that's what Call of Duty did to video gaming, right? They made bank off of the rewards and incentive structure that was associated with getting kills and going on kill streaks and doing all that other stuff in Call of Duty. With classic Halo, it was about the experience. Halo's enjoyment was derived from teamwork, being able to win matches, coming out on top, all that sorts of stuff. When Call of Duty took off with Modern Warfare 2, it went from being about the individual gameplay experience to being more or less focused on personal achievement, right? It was all about the reward. Getting kills, going on kill streaks, like I said before. And that started to slowly translate over to Halo with Halo 4. And again, a lot of people don't talk about it, but just in trying to take away Call of Duty's market share by blatantly ripping off their mechanics, you take along with them the worst problems, the more insidious problems, so to speak, that those games have, which is the focus on personal achievement, not giving a shit about winning games, and just foregoing teamwork altogether. And Halo is totally different from Call of Duty. That kind of mentality does not work. Just ask anybody who has ever had a teammate rage quit on them in Halo the Master Chief Collection. If you're playing a man down, you're screwed. You're going to get dominated by the team with 4 players on their team, right? If it's a 4 versus 3, and I'm telling you, even to this day, it still happens all the friggin' time in Halo the Master Chief Collection. If you don't have well-balanced teams, and one of your players quits, or one of the guys on your team leaves the match mid-game, you're going to get steamrolled. If your team is getting steamrolled, you're going to get steamrolled with them. Halo, in the past, has not been a game about personal success, alright? Your enjoyment, the enjoyability of the match and everything like that comes from how you and your team are able to coordinate with each other in order to complete objectives and come out on top. And we're seeing that with Halo Infinite again, right? Those same cues. If your team is getting steamrolled, you're going to get steamrolled with them. And I say that as a good thing because now the game, that just tells me it has a more competitive focus than it has in God knows how many years. Well, I mean, Halo 5 technically, but then again, it had all the issues with sprint and everything like that. But seeing that team balancing type work in effect, it just makes me really, really happy to see, but only if the skill-based matchmaking system works at launch. I understand that they're still using the same SBMM system that was in the MCC, that's fine, but teams need to be balanced and players have to focus on teamwork now. And I consider that a positive thing because, in my opinion, Halo has always been a competitive shooter, even if you're playing casually, just like those other games that I mentioned before, Valorant, Counter-Strike Go, all of that stuff. Your enjoyment from the match doesn't come from how many kills you get, how many kills, not kill streaks, but like killing sprees, killing frenzies, all that stuff. Those are fine, but the emphasis on teamwork is the most important part of an arena match in Halo, in my opinion. And we're seeing that back in Halo Infinite, and that just makes me happy to see. Now, kind of the final point that I want to go over today, because this commentary is already close to 21 minutes long, I'm looking at the timer right now, has to do with the free-to-play nature of Halo Infinite's multiplayer. Okay? I consider this both a really good thing and a really questionable decision at the same time. So I'll kind of talk about the positive a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and end the video on some questions that I have regarding the future of Infinite's free-to-play model and the multiplayer at large. So Halo Infinite's multiplayer going completely free-to-play will have lasting ramifications for the overall health and longevity of Halo Infinite's multiplayer, probably for years to come, right? And I guarantee you that was a direct response to the popularity of Fortnite and Warzone. Especially Fortnite, right? Because I know Halo Infinite's been in development for a very long time, but Fortnite completely changed the nature of multiplayer gaming forever, arguably. And I was addicted to that game for a few years, I'm an OG Fortnite player, and, the game sucks now, but I can't deny that it being free to play and having the Battle Pass system, that totally changed the way developers monetize their games. And overall, I consider that to be a positive thing because it's opened up a whole array of new kinds of experiences, a brand new DLC model. Because keep in mind, right, with Call of Duty and all these other games before, they sold map packs, they had, Halo 5 had the rec system, they had supply drops in Call of Duty, and then Fortnite just came along one day and boom, introduced the Battle Pass for like their second season or whatever it was, man. And every other game, every other multiplayer game, even the premium ones, have copied that system, and they all call it the same thing, the Battle Pass, and they sell the same stuff. Cosmetic items, player skins, weapon skins, sprays, emotes, whatever the hell it is, man. It's all the same stuff. And Halo Infinite isn't going to be any different, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing, right? They have their armor coding system. They no longer have primary, secondary, and tertiary colors for customizing your Spartan. That rustled a lot of feathers when that announcement was first made, but in my opinion, it's not as invasive as I thought it was going to be. The color combinations that they've come up with themselves are just fine, in my opinion, and as long as there is enough content to unlock for free without having to buy anything whatsoever in Halo Infinite, then I don't care. Because I'm 23. I've gotten beyond this point of spending hundreds of dollars on just stupid skins and emotes and stuff in games. I mean, if the game is free to play, I want to play it, for free, right? And if other people want to spend money on the shit so I can play the game for free, that's fine. I already have Xbox Game Pass, and I already pay enough to be able to play all of these other games anyway. So the monetization side of Halo Infinite isn't really going to bother me as much as it probably will other people, right? And because the game is free to play, more than likely Halo Infinite's launch population on the multiplayer is going to be bigger than any other Halo game. As long as Microsoft markets the game right and does everything in their power to make sure people know that this game exists and it's available to play for free, right? And they've got it on every Xbox platform possible. You know, you can run the game on a base Xbox One, and you can download it for free, right? So there's going to be a lot of people who play the game at launch and everything like that. But at the same time, there's also another side to this idea that isn't so positive, at least the way I'm reading into it. And who knows, I might be reading into it too much, but one of the big changes that Halo Infinite is making with regards to the entire franchise is they want this game to live for 10 years, okay? They have a 10-year plan for this game, and I think one of the things that I heard in the developer commentary, the most recent one on Halo's YouTube channel, is that they already have like a roadmap completely planned out for the first year of Halo Infinite, you know, from now into 2022. Right? But that's kind of besides the point. They want this game to last for 10 years. Okay? The full game hasn't come out yet. So we have no idea what this game is going to look like. Like, we don't even know what the campaign is going to look like or what other game modes they have planned and what they're going to do with the multiplayer balancing, right? Because if they want this game to last for 10 years, they're going to have to give this game consistent content updates. They're going to have to give players new maps, give them new weapons, and they've talked about that before. That's why they have weapon pads, or like the weapon racks, Halo 2 style, in all of the multiplayer maps now, right? Because they wanted to find an easier way to implement new weapons when they add them into the game, into all of these maps, you know, even the launch maps, right? So they have the weapon rack system for their future DLC weapons. But the thing is, right, the thing that I'm afraid of more than anything else is, when does it stop? You know, how many new maps are they going to put into this new game, you know, every single year? How many are going to be there 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now? And with all the weapons and everything like that, how are they going to balance all of that for these new maps? And how are they going to rotate them in and out? Are they going to have like an automated system in place? Are they going to not have like a map voting system or anything like that anymore? Is it all just going to be like completely random? Are people not going to have a choice as to what maps they want to play on? Or, you know, and maybe these questions are dumb, maybe I'm worrying over nothing, but I think overall the thing I'm afraid of is I just don't know how long this game is going to be able to survive its own DLC, you know, its own content updates, with how many weapons they're going to put in there and all of the maps. How much of that are we actually going to get to play? And how much of that is going to be fucking gone forever when, you know, it's 5 years, 6 years down the line and all of the new content that they have for their multiplayer are new maps and everything like that. Like, I don't really know how they're going to be able to make it to where you can experience all of this content within a reasonable time frame. I don't know. Again, it could be nothing that I'm worrying about, but it could also be something, and it's just food for thought, right? You know, we have no idea if they're even going to be able to stick to that 10-year plan. We don't know what the game is going to look like even a year from now. And if the gameplay changes dramatically enough from now to, like, you know, 3-4 years from now, how can you even say it's the same game anymore, right? And it's like what happened with Fortnite, right? Fortnite Battle Royale is 4 years old. And that game, starting around Season 4, Chapter 1, began to change dramatically, and every update that came out just made the game worse and worse and worse and worse. And now, the game's not fun to play anymore. I don't even have it installed on my Xbox at this point because they've just done everything in their power to empower casuals and to regain their old foothold that they had on the industry that they haven't had for a little while. And it's just frustrating, man. I'm very nostalgic for the old days of Fortnite, you know? And I have a lot of appreciation for what that game did for multiplayer gaming in general since it came out. But at the same time, when I look at how I used to feel about that game and all of its content updates, you know, the way I feel about Halo Infinite now is how I used to feel about Fortnite, and I was overwhelmingly optimistic. I was always there day one when the new season came out, and I always bought the battle passes and did all this other stuff, but the game got worse and worse and worse over time, and I'm scared of that same thing happening to Halo Infinite, and this is something that I don't hear anybody talking about. And I kind of get it because nobody really knows what the hell is going to happen. But, you know, I speak from personal experience. And I just don't want to see another gaming franchise or another game that I love go bad like that. I have no idea. But then again, I could be worrying over nothing. We'll see what happens when the game comes out, and I will be sure to visit this video if or even when that time comes. So, we'll see what happens. I'm still looking forward to Halo Infinite coming out, and I'll definitely be around to talk about it once I've had an opportunity to enjoy Halo Infinite and all of its content.